Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. When I got the phone call to come and that David requested me to do this service, all of this service is at the orders of this person, all through Carol's Blue Book rather. And we're going to send David, Lavinia off in style. My initial thing was, should I do it in drag? And I thought, nah, that'd be a bit cliche. So I dug out my best frock, and I'm clashing with the decor. So we're going to start our celebration of David's life this morning with a little reflection from Carol. I remember having a conversation with David one time, and it was one of those conversations where you're talking about what it's like to be a drag queen, etc., etc. And he said, Lavinia is my job, not my life. And he kept the two very separately. So, courtesy of Carol and Steve, we're going to get a little bit of an insight into the private David. Firstly, as a family, we'd like to thank everyone for coming today and joining us in the celebration of David's life. Also, a huge thank you to David's close friends who have contributed so much to making it a day to remember. I know many people are grieving his loss like us, and I'm sure there will be tears, but lots of laughter, recalling your memories of David, Dave, or the iconic Lavinia, depending on how you knew him. I've called him a few things over the years, some of which are not repeatable. Talking of Lavinia, I know others will be sharing their memories later, so I thought I'd give you a resume of his early life. David was born on the 19th of August, 1959 at Trevelyan Maternity Hospital to parents Tom and Glenys. This particular place would feature again later in his life when it became a community hospital for the elderly, and he did some voluntary care work there. He absolutely loved it, and everyone loved him too. Both parents and staff used to say he was like a breath of fresh air, and he certainly provided lots of laughs and entertainment during his time spent there. We were a very small family, with David and myself as the only children. So growing up, we were more like brother and sister. He often reminisced about his childhood and how safe and loved he felt as a child. We had a very formidable matriarch in the form of Nana. She idolized David, and he always got away with murder when she was concerned. I remember once the police turned up to the door as David had been throwing stones and smashing streetlights. And all she said was, "Oh well, boys will be boys," and gave the police their marching orders. We often laughed about that. When we went on holiday, it was all of us as a family, starting off at Edwards and Golden Sands holiday camps in Towyn, progressing to Anglesey. Then we got really posh and went abroad, as we called it, to the Isle of Man, which is a special place in my heart to this day. Such special memories. After high school, David went to the local technical college to start a catering course, but sadly had to give it up due to having contact dermatitis. He then went to Ross's Hall Hotel and Restaurant, where he worked as a waiter barman, but more or less ending up running the show, especially when the owners had a bevy or two, which was quite often, as David recalled. Again, he loved his time there, but it was eventually sold and David moved on. He had various jobs going forward involving cleaning and retail work, ending his working career at the co-op, where he loved the banter with the staff, many of whom will be here today, and who visited him while he was in hospital. Sadly, David lost his mum, Glenys, at the young age of 52. Following this, his dad, Tom, moved to a retirement home in Conwy shortly after they purchased their villa in Florida, which family and friends have visited over the years, and of which they were both very proud. David was a great support to his dad in his later years, when ill health beckoned and ultimately led to his death in 2021. Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, David also ran into problems with his own health. He was diagnosed with lung cancer this time last year. However, despite all these issues, he still managed to keep his unique sense of humour throughout and loved all the attention and visitors when he was at Ellesmere Port Hospital recently. It really kept him going at such a difficult time, especially so he could get out for a fag. In conclusion, he will be so missed by so many people, but I'm sure we'll all feel richer for having had him in our lives. He's certainly left quite a legacy behind. For me, personally, he will always be our David, that little boy running across the fields after me to school with a rusk in his hand. Rest in peace, love, and look after the oldies. When someone like David Lavinia passes away, it suddenly makes you start remembering things that you haven't thought of for a long, long, long time. And I realised that actually, I knew Lavinia just a little bit longer than many people realise. And I actually discussed this with Carol when I came to your house. This is when I was about 19. I know. I was about 19 and a friend of mine from school said, come and meet this drag artist that's performing down in Queensferry. So one night we went. The place is closed and boarded up, but it's still there. It's called the Queensferry Hotel, and it's on the Garden City side of the Blue Bridge down at Queensferry. And I went in there, and it was a dingy hole. It really was. It was one of those places where your feet stick to the carpet. The walls were painted dark purple. But there on a stage in the corner, resplendent in her wig and makeup, and of course her sequins, was Lavinia, spinning the decks. At the end of the night, I got to stay back for a bit, just to meet Lavinia in person. And I'm sat there at the bar, and along comes this slightly stocky guy and sits on the seat next to me. He's got jogging pants on, a white t-shirt, short salt and pepper hair. He's given a pint and he starts complaining how he was struggling to get his nail varnish off that night. I did a double take. Well, I'd never seen a drag queen before. I mean, when you think about it, when I was 19, and there's some of you here who will remember that, when I was 19, it was against the law for me to be in a gay club or engaged in anything like that. So I went off to Ireland for 3 years to study philosophy in Galway. And when I came back, by now I was over 21, and I'd heard about this place called Connections. And I remember, because I wasn't out to anyone, but I remember hovering in the rows opposite the club, waiting for someone to go in. And I stayed there for ages and ages. And eventually, someone came along and rang the doorbell, and I bolted across that street to get in the door of the club before anyone saw me. But finding Connections and the family that was Connections was one of the best things that happened to me. It helped me find myself, and Lavinia was part of that journey. She wasn't actually playing that night. It was Andy James, God rest his soul, who was DJ that night. I'm not going to go on too long with my memories because a lot of them are very personal, and same as yours. A lot of the stuff we'll talk about later on. But Lavinia was the heart of everything. Do you remember that boat cruise we did up the River Dee, Ray? And Lavinia was DJing, and they had the decks on the back of the boat, which is probably the worst place you can put the decks. And Lavinia always did this little trick. If she got a record that skipped, she'd say, "Remix!" Well, if I remember rightly, it was an ABBA record she had on. And it was just remix, remix, remix. Eventually, she just took it off and threw it into the River Dee. It's probably still down there somewhere. With Lavinia, everything was love and respect. We all ended up with nicknames. I was Chris the Vicar. And we all ended up with nicknames, but it was never out of malice, and it was always respectful. So, Lavinia, I want to thank you for being part of my life and helping me to find out who I am. And now we're going to go on to a bit of a slideshow, a film that Glenn has put together for us about Lavinia. And Lavinia's singing the song. promise that's not gin I'm drinking in the bottle there. Well, I think I could do with one. Before we move on to the next bit of our Remembering Lavinia, I suppose I should do something I should have done at the top of the show and welcome all of the friends and family that are joining us remotely this afternoon. You're all very welcome, and we hope that you leave this service with many good memories. And now it's time for me to shut up, and I'm sure some of you are thinking, thank God. It's my turn to invite Ian to come up and deliver the main eulogy, which has been compiled by Ray and many other people. Ian.
Hello everybody. Right, for those of you who don't know me, or had me, I'm Ian, or Shagger. I got my name from Lavinia. She called me a nasty shag. So, and then it went on to be Shagger, and then Shaggerada. I've been asked to read a few words from friends, so I'm going to try and do my best without having a meltdown. Right, this one's from Kim. Where are you, Kim? Hi, love. Hiya, Jean. That was Kim's pet name for David, Lavinia. From pestering you on Sunday nights at Oliver's nightclub for Hazeldine records when I was always drunk, you always said no. But you always gave in the end, and we always knew you had a soft side to you. Then whilst working with you in Connections, we became really good friends over the next 39 years. From putting your makeup on at Mother's, to taking me to work, and going on our first holiday abroad to Florida, your favourite place. You were always there for us as a family, especially my mum. Seeing you every day, to not seeing you, is going to be very hard to get used to. But we will get there. Sleep tight, my friend. Love you always, Kim. This next one, can you hear me over there, yeah? Mic shit. Sorry. Knew I should cut him in drag. Right, this is from Alan. I know you. All right. Most people here have heard memories of Lavinia. I like to share my memories as David the person, who I've known and respected most of my life. Since David lost his mum at an early stage of adult life, my mum was one of the first he told. Since that, we became best friends. David would come to our house every day for 30 years. Sounds like him. He'd even introduce our family to Florida holidays in 2000. He started working with my mum as a cleaner over 25 years ago. I could tell you all sorts of stories, but there's not enough time. David will be up there now, sitting with the family, drinking tea at the table with my mum, Maudie, and Pops reunited again. I will miss you, David, from Alan. Right, this is our Ray. The old queen over there in the pink, in the fake tan. Well, where do I start? And what can I say about my dear friend David, aka Lavinia? I met David back in 1976 at the office of Shea, which was the Campaign for Sexual Equality in Bridge Street, Chester. I was the social events organiser and David was a counsellor at the office. We became friends straight away and continued our friendship for 49 years. At the time I knew David, he was a young chicken from Wrexham who also worked as a baker, and later on moved to be head waiter at the Rossett Hall in Wrexham. I think he was about 19 when he started his drag career as Lavinia Quick, hosting his annual Royal Variety Performance show at Oliver's nightclub in Chester. After his success as hosting, Barry Knowles, the owner, asked him to become one of the DJs at the club. Fast forward to 1987. I asked David Lavinia to come and work for me at Connections, my nightclub in Chester, as one of the DJs where we all met. Most of us met. I can say with all my heart, David was the life and soul of the club, as both David and Lavinia. He brought us laughter, songs, cabaret, fabulous entertainment, and he always brought the house down. People always wanted more, especially that one tune that we all knew, and it filled the stage. Let it swing and let it rock and roll. I was going to break into a bit of that, but I thought better not. Lavinia gave us that song. Excuse me. I remember when we went on our staff nights out by coach loads, both staff and customers. He'd be there always entertaining, doing all his sing-alongs on the bus. And one time, he was caught snogging one of his straight members of staff, who was supposedly straight, not to mention any names. David Acker Lavinia was loved by everyone back then and is still loved now. We had a wonderful community of friends who looked out for each other, and I know he will be missed by so many, especially myself, Glenn, and his extended Morris family in Chester. I want to finish by saying thank you, David, for all you gave to our community in Chester. Rest in peace, my friend, Ray. This is my little bit. Lavinia Quick. Lavinia. She was the original matriarch of all those drag queens. She was our drag mother. She inspired us, she showed us, she guided us. We all used to say, you know, we wouldn't admit it to anybody. If we could have a fraction of her entertainment, her skills, her art, her talent, we'd be happy. There's lots of us have tried to emulate her and do our own little thing, like myself, Dixie Tucker, Doreen Cumquick, and 1,001 of the drag queens that had that little bit of an experience or time with Lavinia and going off track. I first met Lavinia before I come out of the closet many years ago in Connections. I used to sneak there when I was in the military, a so-called heterosexual Royal Marine Commando. Ray and Glenn used to let me in, give me a nod, and then later on I used to sneak in with Sandra, and we were that far in the closet. We're in Narnia. And we used to be petrified if anybody was from Rill or Moston would recognise us, and we'd be like ducking and hiding from people. Off on a tangent again. Connections became our family at that time, and it protected us in so many ways. They were the closest to family we'd ever had. Nobody was there to judge us or put us down or say you're wrong, you're abnormal. Even if you wanted to do drag, you know, the likes of Lavinia, they would nurture us without being pervy like some old queens are. He'd give us a lift up and tell us how it was. You know, don't do him, don't do that, don't go there. Yeah, we learned about cotton, we learned about cruising and what not to do and where to go and how to do it safely because they protected us. And people don't want to hear this, but this is part of our gay world. You know, this is what we are, unconditionally. Times were a lot different then than they are now. My best memories, as I said, when me and Sandra used to walk in, we were terrified, literally terrified. And Kim would let us in half the time. She's going, "No, you're bad," for some altercation. And we'd sneak in and try and not get to catch it, you know, not a glance. But then, as soon as she saw us, there they are, this, that, and the other. But then we wanted her affection. We wanted her attention. That's what we needed. We wanted the love from Lavinia and the rest of the gang. Lavinia, Connections, Ray, Glenn, Kim, Glyn, The whole shebang helped us through the best and the worst times imaginable. It was at times when we were losing friends. They were dropping off. They were just going. And that was tough, because we did lose a lot of people. Yeah, we argued, God knows. I got banned several times. Like, used to come in, apologise, and Ray give me a slap and say, "Come on in, you soft queen." And that's what any normal dysfunctional family does. We mess up, but they're there, and they have our backs, and still has our backs. And we remain great friends to today. We've been able to forge long-life friendships with these individuals and thousands of others across yada, yada, yada. On a personal note, I always remember receiving this massive bouquet of white flowers when I'd finished my master's. No, it was my PhD. And we just moved house and come back from America, and there was this massive, and it was gorgeous, these flowers. And I couldn't understand how David had got my address, but it said Shagger, Ian, mould, and these flowers got to me. And it was like, just blew my tits off. And all it said on it, "You did well, hon." That was it, love Lavinia. Old school drag was the ultimate best and still is now, in my opinion. Hope the likes of the ones that are carrying on now remember and give a nod to the quality of the people of like Lavinia and all the others that paved the way for us to have our freedoms and express how we are today. Lavinia and David was the best, and you will be sincerely missed by thousands and thousands of people that genuinely adored and admired you. Rest in peace, my lovely friend, Ian Shagger. Thank you.
Carol found this little poem. This is going to conclude our sort of formal celebration of David's life. That's in your order to service if you want to follow it. A hilarious farewell poem. Oh, my friend, you left too soon, but I can hear you laughing at the moon. Your sense of humour, a guiding light, a life that shined through day and night. From silly jokes to puns galore, you had us rolling on the floor. We'll miss your wit, your laughter sweet, but smile recalling your comical feats. In memory of your laughter rings a symphony of joyous things, a hilarious farewell. We'll raise a toast to a life well lived, a love that boasts. Now, I arranged with Carol when we were doing this, we would give this moment now just to the family. So I'd like to invite the family only, please, if you want to come up and just spend a moment with David before we conclude our service. And please take your time, there's no rush. It's always sad to say goodbye, but especially when it's like this, a final goodbye to someone who was loved by so many people in so many ways and for so many different reasons. Thank you, David, Lavinia, for being in all our lives. And that brings our celebration of David's life to a close. But it's going to finish in style with the record he gave to us all, the record we always wanted to hear when we were in Connections. And if you remember the dance, please do it on the way out. Thank you very much for being here on behalf of the family and the very close friends who are mourning at this time. And thank you, Carol, Steve and David, for involving me in this wonderful celebration.